Have you all seen The Fifth Element?
No.
It's like a sci-fi flick with Bruce Willis.
I know of it, but I don't think I've seen it.
I'll find that scene. I'll send it to you guys. That's what I think of when it's not Chris Rock. I think it's Kevin Hart or something. Or I've showed it to you before, where he's like the loud and crazy radio host guy, and he's interviewing Bruce Willis, and he's like goes through his whole spiel, and he's like, "How are you doing?" And he's like, "Fine."
That's how you would be if you were our guest.
One word answers.
Yeah.
Fine. Yeah. Do you have like crazy lights? What is all of that? Like on your faces, it's like changing to
kind of
green.
blinking. I don't know.
Oh, maybe it's like
your tan.
what's on my screen.
My tan. I got a spray tan.
Well, that's right. That's your update. You are now an Oompa Loompa.
I got a spray. Just call me Donald.
Oompa.
It is kind of fun that you and Mom went together. Yeah. Oh, but she's like, you go first. I was
Of course she did.
Do you know what those words do?
Oh my God, like PTSD.
And I was like, I can't show baby.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I was like, do you know anything about my history, Mom? It was fun to do together, though. It's so funny. Because the gala gave us the whole spiel. And in my mind, I'm just envisioning Ross the whole time. Like all of that, that's just like classic thing. It's also very stressful. Like she's like, so then you're going to do this. You put these sticky things on your feet and then make sure you do lotion. And I'm like, okay. So I'm like trying to, listen to all her words. And then when I finally get in there and like, I'm in there and it's talking to me and it starts spraying and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm looking down. Where do I need to look? So I'm like, I look up. So I think I looked down the whole time and I was like, my face is going to be so brown. And then you turn around and so thankfully it all turned out fine. Welcome to A Word with the Girls. I'm Abby and I'm here with my sisters Molly and Emily. Make sure to go follow us on Instagram at A Word with the Girls. And if you have yet to subscribe to our podcast on Spotify, go click that follow button so you don't miss an episode. We would love to hear from you. If you have a question or even a word you'd like for us to discuss, make sure to comment on Spotify or on our Instagram with your word, and it may be featured in our future episodes.
We're now from the north.
We are from Minnesota. So before we dive into our word today, let's catch up. What are some quick little updates? We kind of have Molly's fun matchmaking vibes happening.
I know you came up with a fun, clever name. We'll find a match for Molly and May.
Yes. Matching May.
Okay. We should probably give a backstory of even how this sort of began. There's a lot of we could explain, but I had come across this Instagram post of this mom looking for a date for her son for a wedding. And I was like, man, he's really cute, but he was like really young, like 27. I was like, no, like we want to stick within like a upper 30s range. And so then I was like, Mom, we should like totally do something like this. And then when we podcasted last week and singleness came up and you mentioned like, we need to just put this every week. And so then I was like, we need to put this out there and see if maybe we can find Molly a match. And so now we've kind of started this new journey. Molly, how are you feeling about this, putting you and your singleness and finding you a match out to the world? Because we have almost 500 views on that video thus far.
Wow.
Or cumulative, like 500 on YouTube and 500 on Instagram. So maybe 1,000. I don't know.
Nice.
I don't know how you do that. Is that podcasting math? I don't know.
Oh man. No, I don't know. I like the idea of crowdsourcing a husband or just a date. I don't know. But yeah, I think it's kind of fun. I mean, obviously the dating apps are terrible. And they just seem to be getting worse. And So I really want to practice like trying to meet people in real life. So that is something, it's a goal for my summer, is to just kind of like try out some different ways to meet people in the wild. But I'm also open to any and all creative endeavors, you know? So whether that's like being set up with someone or having, you know, fielding suggestions from strangers. So yeah, I don't know. It's fun. I'm open to whatever, honestly. Like, I like the idea. Plus, I think people are fascinated by something like this. So I think it'll get us a lot of interaction and engagement on our Instagram. But I have, you know, I have some good friends who really love The Bachelor, Bachelorette. And so they're like, yeah, you're gonna need to post like updates all the time so that we can follow along. So we'll see if anything even happens, you know. I'm just curious. I'm along for the ride.
Yeah. Well, and for our listeners, we will try to give you a update every time we podcast a little bit more in depth. Obviously, follow us on Instagram because that's where Molly may go live or answer whatever questions you may be posting in Instagram. But here we'll dive a little bit deeper into those things and maybe get updates on, you know, if there's any prospects. And maybe we'll ask you a couple of questions ourselves of, you know, just to kind of get some more info for those listening as you think through your Rolodexes of single Christian men who are employed and tall, preferably, but you know, we're not picky. So I thoroughly enjoyed your answer about what the ideal date was, because I'm glad that you did a video, because I really want people to see your personality kind of come through, and you have like this humor about you that's kind of dry but sarcastic and just funny. And so when you quoted Miss Congeniality, I thought that was like so good, you know, just like kind of like little quippy, but then you also answered it in a really eloquent way too. So that was really fun. Hearing that answer was really cute. I haven't heard your other answers quite yet. So
Yeah, one of them I give a very semi-obscure throwback reference to a show that we grew up watching, but isn't super
Really?
common.
I don't know if I caught it.
So someone wrote and was like, "Oh my gosh, that's like such a throwback." So yeah,
So funny. Oh, I didn't catch it. I'll have to go back and
it's
listen
on
to it.
the question about.
Oh,
so for those who are not on Instagram, who aren't getting this information, what was the question and what was your answer?
One of the questions was, tell us about your experience with speed dating. And this was kind of a what do you call it? Like a planted question, because this person went on speed dating with me. So and I wasn't exactly sure what aspect of that experience she was hoping I would talk about, especially because something really embarrassing happened to her, but I didn't share that in my answer. But what I did share was that, you know, there was like a whole diverse crew of characters that were part of speed dating, including a man who was wearing like a leather vest and a necklace with like either teeth or claws or something on it. And I said, you know, it was really giving Sully from Dr. Quinn Medicine Woman. And then I was like, which is not terrible, but do you remember
Wow.
that show?
gosh.
Yes.
But yeah, like Sully was like really attractive, and he was a white guy, but like lived with the Native Americans or something. But he had like long hair and a
Oh,
tomahawk, and yeah,
thumbs up to that.
So
So solely vibes, but
But
no.
not quite.
but
Pass.
not a match. Yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
So, anyways,
And do you
Good
remember what was the other question? Like what you're looking for in a guy or something? I can't remember what the other question was.
yeah. What are some qualities that you're looking
Oh,
for?
you had such good ones. Honesty, kindness.
Yeah. So like integrity, generosity, kindness, compassion, work ethic, sense of humor.
Great. All right. Share. You know, we're gonna have this go viral. Maybe we'll get invited onto the Today Show to help find Molly a match in May. You know, that would be crazy. If we got invited back to the Today Show, like
Oh my gosh. It would be fun to be like, do you remember us?
right.
So good.
Yeah.
If they know it's good for them, they'd invite us back.
Yep. We're
Sure.
so charming.
I know.
And like, who doesn't love a good, sister matchmaking endeavor?
Right.
And a good love story. Like, come on. Like, this world is, kind of a dumpster fire right now. So we could use some good news these days and sweet, happy stories.
Yeah.
But, Kevin and I were watching a show, and the people, I think it was a reality TV show, and they were talking about how like one guy went on like 50 dates in 50 days or something crazy. Like, that's overkill. But maybe like have like a goal of like a couple dates in the month or something. Obviously if you have to travel, then that changes the dynamics a little bit, but I don't know. Even if it's like a virtual date, I don't know, would that be weird?
No, I don't know. We do have tickets to a concert at the end of August. And I bought 2 tickets just, to have 2. So I have been thinking it would be great to just like find a date to this concert because I
It's
have an
gonna be
extra
so
ticket.
good.
So like, yeah. And it is going to be really good. It's outside. It's in Grand Junction.
The music is moody and
Yeah. Gregory Alan Isaacoff. Isaacoff? I don't know how
I
you
say
it.
Isaac.
Which truly is your ideal date, because you're doing something, you can talk sort of, and like I think a concert, something outdoors, includes some drinks and some food, like it really is the ideal date.
Well,
you
and
know?
Alex and I will be there.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. So you can
So
kind of
we're
like
buffered.
suss. Yeah, totally.
We can read the room. We
And
can leave if we need to. We can.
totally. Yep. Alrighty. Well, there you have it, friends. We're not only finding Molly a match in May, but it's for the concert that's coming up. That is the goal.
Yeah.
So we'll keep you posted.
Nice.
I love it.
Cool.
So exciting. If we were to put like all of the like the ideal things, like there's this TikTok trend going on right now, and this chick came up with this like funny thing, and now people are turning it into a song, and now people are like responding in their own various ways. And it was like, I'm looking for a guy in finance, 6'5", blue eyes, trust fund, the like what she's looking for, but she kind of sang it. And so now people are like, I'm looking for a Jewish man with whatever, and so now we have to come up with like our own little jingle for you.
Ooh, yes.
Obviously we would love for him to be like a tall lumberjack who loves Jesus, but we're not picky either, but if one of the three of us could have somebody over 6 feet tall, that would be really cool.
Yeah,
But no pressure. So anyways, we'll have to be like, looking for a tall lumberjack, loves Jesus and outdoors, travels and karaoke's, something like that.
And has been to therapy.
Yes. Actually,
Yes.
I should have included that in my answer. Yeah.
Emotionally stable.
Right. Love it. Such a fun update. I can't wait to like have these updates now. See, I'm thoroughly enjoying this podcast because this is like an excuse for us to connect anyways, but now this is even more so on like all the updates.
Well, and you're really forcing me out of my comfort zone with like Instagram activity. Like literally I've never done a story recording myself.
Hey guys, I just wanted to pop on here and show you my grocery haul.
So yeah. So like when you said that I might go live, like what? No.
You did great.
So
You did great. And this is the best way for people to see you,
True.
Because maybe a question will be asked about, tell us about your baking experience. And then you can be like, with all your new equipment that you talked about, hi, the kind of baking I like to do is me and Mabel do blah, blah, blah. Like you could like, do you like delicious sweet goodies? Like I am a master baker, like, whatever. Our channel, our Instagram will be like, real podcast Molly update, real podcast Molly update, like that's going to be the new cadence for a little while, which is totally fine.
I like it.
Any other updates, or should we go with our word?
I think we go with our word.
Cool. So I was talking to a friend earlier before recording, and I asked her for a number. So we're going to choose the number that Nina gave. She chose the number 88.
88.
Oh.
Neighbors.
Okay.
The person, this was a recommendation from a friend of mine, actually.
Okay, so this was a number rec from Nina and a recommendation from Robin. Thanks, Robin, for submitting a word. We're going to talk about neighbors.
Neighbors.
Nice.
Won't you be my neighbor?
I
Oh,
feel like we were beyond blessed to have the neighbors we grew up next to
For sure.
they were so fun.
in so many ways. Like, first of all, they ended up having 3 girls. The other 2, like their oldest was my age, and then their other 2 were a little bit younger. So
Younger
like,
than me.
Mhm.
So
yeah. But she was my best friend growing up. And so that was like really, really special. Like growing up next door to my best friend. And it just seems so surreal. Like it felt like a TV show, you know, growing up and like being able to like knock on her window or talk to each other from like, you know, different places in the house. Their house was just like a second home, kind of.
Right.
We just kind of were always over at their house, mostly because they had cherry Coke, video
Yeah.
games, cable.
Yep. Yep.
All
All
the
things
things.
we did not have at all.
But they were the best. They were so much fun, and so spent like a lot of time with them. And what was fun was they're Greek Orthodox, and so we also were exposed to cultural differences. They're a Greek family, and so getting to enjoy like really delicious food. Like Dad was always so excited when they were cooking lamb for like Passover or Easter or whatever. But then their family dynamics were always so fun too, like just tons of family was always over, grandparents and aunts and uncles and cousins and stuff. So that was
Mhm.
always really, really so fun to just be a part of that too. And it just was the best. And now she now lives in our house that we grew up in, which is the best.
Wildest
That's
part of
the
the
craziest
story.
It's like-
thing of all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So we will keep your names anonymous, but I'll make sure you know that this podcast we're talking about you all. But seriously, the best neighbors. And I think even though like we're not as connected these days, I think that friendship will always be one that's just a forever friendship, just because, you know, of all the things
Yeah, you grew up
Mhm.
together.
but we even like fought like sisters too. You know, that was the funny part. It was
Dang.
just the best.
Yep.
And you don't always get lucky to have good neighbors like that next to you.
Yeah. I feel
So-
like where Alex and I live, the builder, he designed this neighborhood in a way that forced people outside. And so
Mm.
there's 2 different types of homes in our neighborhood. There's ones that your front door faces this green space and your garage is on the back side of your house. That's the type we live in. And then the houses that border the neighborhood are your traditional homes with the garage and the front door like on the front of the house. But his whole purpose was to force people outside to build community. And so that was really intriguing and we just really loved that idea. And so we kind of bought into that idea. We bought a house there, and everyone else, because it was a new subdivision, also bought into that idea. So we moved into this neighborhood where everyone was like ready, willing to build connections, build community, you know, meet your neighbors. And it really has become that, which has been really, really cool. Our direct neighbors are like mom and dad's age. The ones next to them are a little older. So we have some older folks, but then there are half a dozen families in that neighborhood, and it's just really cool. All of our kids are about the same age. Some families are definitely closer than others, but for the most part, like, yeah, we can all check in on each other, and I'd say we know at least 80% of everyone in that neighborhood.
Which I feel like is
And-
so not normal. Like in these
Right.
days, like you really all
Right.
do spend a lot of time together outside, playing games, picnicking, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. And usually the rule is just like, if you see us out there, like, come join us. It's
Mhm.
not always like a text that's like, hey, we're all playing. It's just like, no, if you see us, just come. You're
Mhm.
like, it's always welcome. So I feel like we got really lucky. Just everybody who started in that neighborhood had the same heart. And so I think that's why it's been so successful. And there've been, just events in the neighborhood and people really show up for each other and
love each other and check in on each other. And there's several moms who like go on walks every day together. And it's just really, it's been really cool to see how this neighborhood is a living, breathing thing.
So cool.
So for this season, it just feels, we might not live there forever, but it just feels like with little kids and other little kids around, it just is, it's a pretty special neighborhood.
What have neighbors looked like for you, Molly, like when you lived overseas and now like when you've had roommates and now you live in an apartment? Like what does that look like for you?
Very unique. In Indonesia, you know, it's such like a communal society. So like lots of interaction with people there. Nothing really stands out too much during that season. Aside from like, you know, when we lived more in the city versus like out in the suburbs, there were definitely like the usual, I don't know, the little cocky lima guy with the, I don't know, fruit or whatever. There were just like the usual suspects that were around all the time. So that was always fun.
That's fun.
But I would say Bangkok was probably my most unique living situation. The first place I lived was above this restaurant that was owned by these Chinese sisters who were like so precious, and these old ladies, and they rented rooms above their restaurant, and the rooms were only separated by like plywood walls. So you had neighbors, but they were basically like roommates. So that was just really interesting and like sometimes uncomfortable. Like one of the best stories from that time was when I had first moved there. Like I barely even started taking language lessons. So I like didn't really know the language. I'm by myself, pretty like I'm the only person living in this tiny little room. And there's a guy also renting a room in the building who's like a security guard or something somewhere. Like he had a uniform. And one day he came to my door and knocked on my door. And the word for boyfriend sounds like the word fan in English. And so he was asking if I had a boyfriend, but all I heard was the word fan. And so when he asked, because he's asking in Thai because he doesn't know English, and I was like, oh, fan? Yeah, I have a fan right there. And I like pointed to my fan in my room. And it was just like this really awkward moment. So eventually I learned the word that he was actually saying as I continued in language school, and was like, oh, yeah, that's kind of funny.
Oh my god.
Okay.
That's hilarious. He's like, wow,
So,
she's crazy. She
anyways.
thinks this fan is her boyfriend. Cuckoo.
Right. But I'm kind of glad that I was like, oh yeah, I have a boyfriend.
Oh, for sure.
You know. So I didn't necessarily feel in danger, just like
Wow, so bold of him.
so yeah, just like such an interesting experience living overseas and being like a single female and like living, you know, kind of by yourself.
That's insane.
So yeah, I mean, the cool part is that I lived in that building for about 4 months and then moved to another room within the same Thai market, and then eventually lived there again when I came on as staff and lived in an apartment in that area. So like all those people just like became my neighbors. And they, you know, like there were the old ladies who sat downstairs and just like judged and gossiped about everybody all day. And they would like, you know, every time I walked by, they'd be like, how are you doing? What are you doing? You look so fat, you know, just like they just always had like something to say. And it was just so funny. Like the characters in that whole area who became such like beloved people to me, you know, like the fruit stand couple and the chicken lady and the vegetable lady and whatever. Like it was really really fun and just so wild, you know, such an interesting season of life.
I'm sure they felt the same about you every day they got to see
I like the
beautiful tall white girl.
white lady. What the heck are you doing here?
Yeah.
You know, I just never understood it. So yeah, I think those are probably some of my favorite neighbor experiences. I think, you know, living in an apartment, you really have to like get used to being courteous and with
Mm.
noise and things like that. So that's always a bit of a learning curve. And I really haven't like met too many people that live here. I mean, there's plenty of people who I'm like friendly with and we say hi, but America's also just like a different place. I don't know. Part of it is that I'm introverted, but I think people sort of tend to keep to themselves
Mhm.
unless you like have kids or you have like a dog or something, you know, like
Yeah.
something that naturally
Yeah.
forces you to interact with other people. It's really easy to just kind of not. So I'm not very good at that. So that's why it's good for people to just start speaking a foreign language to me when I don't know what it is. You know, like that. That's good for me. Because yeah, I'm not one who's gonna like go out of my way all the time.
Yeah, I will say one benefit of the pandemic was that when we were living in Virginia, we lived in like townhomes that were all connected to each other. And sort of like what you're saying, like we, obviously we have Angus, and so we would walk him. And so you sort of knew people by their dog, but that was about it. Like you'd see them walking around, be like, oh, your dog's so cute. And that would be it. But then when the pandemic hit, we got to know our neighbors so well, and it was such a gift because they were some of the coolest people. But because pandemic forced us to get outside, and that was like the only safe interaction, like we really did get to know like our next door neighbors, to the people across the street who had a chocolate lab, which obviously like I bonded with them immediately because she looked just like Ruthie. And had dinner, we would have dinner over at their house, and it was just so sweet. But it's so unfortunate that it took a pandemic for us to like the whole neighborhood to like really get to know each other. But it was really sweet. Kevin's actually, interestingly enough, he's the introvert between the both of us. He is the most friendly neighbor to everyone. Like he wants to know their names. He has their names in a list on his phone, where I'm like, meh,
My
like
gosh.
I don't know, maybe because he's the one that's like mowing and doing yard work and stuff, but he's always like, hey, Sonny, hey, so and so, like he's like, it's so funny. Like it seems so out of character, and where I'm like the grouchy wife who doesn't talk to anybody or something. I don't know. Like they probably
Weird.
don't
You
know.
grouchy? Never, ever, ever.
Right. But that's probably like what it seems like, wow, she like never talks to anybody and he's so friendly. And it's just so funny because like that's very opposite of like who we initially are. But get this. So, the video that I did of me with the iWalk that went viral, like over 2 million people or whatever, it came across the desk of our next door neighbor. She was like, oh my gosh, that looks like Emily. And then her fiance or boyfriend was like, no, that is Emily. And so she started following me because of that. And she's like a nurse. And anyway, so now she like knows what's going on in my life, even though I don't never talk to her. It's just so
Oh my
funny.
God.
It's so funny. I was like,
really funny.
Whoa.
who knew? So
Crazy.
Whoa.
Yeah. The other thing I love, like talking about like these people that you just see daily, that's just like their rhythm and you see them at a certain time. We have the sweetest old couple a few houses down, and they are precious. They are, gosh, Loretta is like 88 or 89. And every Sunday they hobble down to the mailboxes and wait for their Methodist van to come pick them up to go to church. And I love every time I see them out there, I like go out there and try and talk to them because just a joy. And someone who's been around for that long, you're like, please tell me like all the things that I'm worrying about, like, are they necessary? And what would you do differently? Or, I just think there's so much to be learned from those older folks who are willing to share and who are like excited to share. And the same thing for her. She always says, we just love seeing all these kids run around, and it's just so life-giving. We never wanted to be put in one of those old people houses because we know that, it would wear us down. And so being around all these young families is just as life-giving for them as it truly is for me. Like, I'm just like, one day she said, I could pass away tomorrow. And I'm just so grateful for the life that I've had. And her and her husband are both still alive, and they're just precious. And it's just, I just feel really fortunate to know them and know them more than just a acquaintance,
Well, and I'm sure it means a lot to them for you to, talk to them because, you obviously you probably know more of their story, but like sometimes people don't have their kids around and like they're pretty lonely. And so you making an effort you're almost like pseudo kids to them or grandkids to them. So that must be really sweet. It's so funny because I think about when I get older, I'm like, put me in assisted living. I would love it. Like all the activities, all the socialization. Even Kevin's like, yeah, that sounds great. So anyways, put that on the record. We would like to live in assisted living when we get really old.
Okay, good to know if we ever need to make that decision for you.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yep.
how funny.
I think like the idea of communal living sounds fun to me. I think this is why I'm so excited that, the goal for us to like move to Grand Junction and live there is to do life with you all. Like, I think it just would be so fun, to, I don't know, you just like, you can't do life alone, and having people there for the good times and the hard times, like that to me is just like, that's what I want.
Well, and people who have known you and known who you are and through all the different life stages, I just feel like that's kind of irreplaceable. And yeah, I would love communal living too.
I mean, I guess that's kind of what you live in right now, which I think is so cool. Like to think that like I don't know, what do you call him, a general contractor or whatever he is, like that was the intention of like, I want it to be communal living. Like it's like forced, but in
So
like
cool.
not a very obvious way, maybe. I don't know. Like, I just think it's so cool.
I know. I love it. Yeah. And all of our front porches face these big green spaces. And so all of our yards are super tiny, but it just forces us outside and out front. And
No, even Kevin like loves that idea too. He's like, I don't know, maybe living in there would be kind of cool. He does like his privacy, but I think also
I know it goes, but I think it helps that we know the majority of the people.
Yeah, that's true.
That really helps. But yeah, I mean, you could always wish for something. There's days where I'm like, I just wish I had some elbow room and that I didn't have to say hi. Like, can I just not? But
I guess like, yeah, what does it look like to be like a good neighbor? I don't know. When you move into a new neighborhood, like, are you bringing cookies to everybody to be like, hi, we're the Rileys, or Kevin wants to just like set up a barbecue on our driveway, even though we've lived here for a little over a year, to be like, come meet us, like come say hi. I don't know. Like, I think that might like shock people, but maybe that is what we need. Like someone to start the walls to come down and to start the conversations. So
Totally.
yeah, I think those things are exactly what you do. Like, I think like we've done lemonade stands and hot chocolate stands. And I just think it draws people in and you get to small talk with them. And I think about our direct neighbors. They are in the Front Range most of the time now, but like we have their phone numbers, and so we text them if something needs to happen or if they need us to check on something. And yeah, I just think it's like when you can trust somebody enough to look out for you. And we have other neighbors across the way where their home is their second home. And yeah, same thing. We just check in on them. They hadn't come yet. Usually they were here by now. And so, shooting them a text of like, hey, just wondering when you guys are coming for the season. And
so cool.
yeah, really cool.
I mean, that really matters because sometimes I've been caught in a bind where I'm like, I can't get home. I remember one night I went out with some girls in DC and things didn't get crazy. I just like needed a ride home and it was too late and taxis were taking forever and an Uber was like over $100. And I was like, I don't know what to do. And so thankfully I built a relationship with our next door neighbors to be like, can you please go let Angus out? Because Kevin was out of town. He was probably like TDY or deployed or something. And I was like, I'm staying the night in a hotel in DC because I can't get home for like less than whatever. And it was just like a whole thing. But like having somebody to be able to call to be like, please let my dog out, something simple, or go check on my house or whatever.
Or like
that
the other day, Annie was still napping and it was time to go pick the kids up from their homeschool co-op thing. And so I texted one of the moms and was like, hey, can you please just come watch the monitor for 5 minutes while I run down and get the kids and come back? And she's like, oh yeah, I'll be right over. So she just came and sat, and it was just like, this is awesome.
Oh, well, I feel like mom had a story of that. Like, I think it was when Molly, you were like just born. And this is where we became like best friends with some friends of ours that are like practically family. And the mom was like, she would just like grab her monitor and like run over and hang out with mom or whatever. Like because they were both like new moms and they just became like best friends. And I think sometimes even those things are what bond you, like whether it's because you have a dog or you have kids the same age or
Mhm.
whatever. So yeah, you always pray for good neighbors, but
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we had a neighbor in Vancouver who would mow our lawn, and we would just like buy him some adult beverages, and in exchange, because we had like this
Awesome.
large yard, and so he would mow our lawn. It was very nice.
We have dual custody of a lawnmower with our neighbor.
dual custody.
We we paid half. Because they have a tiny patch of grass in their backyard, and so do we. And so they were like, "Hey, do you want to like go in on halvesies with it?" We're like, "Yeah." So now we just text each other like, "Hey, can we have a lawnmower today, or can we have it tomorrow?" And just works.
I love it.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
so fun. Well, our neighbors in Virginia, their son was like 13 or something, and he was in Boy Scouts, and Kevin was like a major Boy Scout growing up, like obsessed, and so sometimes he would have like things like I'm working on this badge, and so like, do you guys want to come over and start a fire and do some oars or
Cool.
whatever? And so that was always fun. And then they ended up getting a guinea pig, and so then we would watch the guinea pig, which was like, exotic pet sitting, for us. So I don't know. It was just always fun. And so it kind of felt like, oh, what was that show called? Home Improvement? Like Wilson? Because you'd be like, you kind of could see each other because our fences were like, I'm over 6 feet tall. So it's like, I don't know, chin level. And so you'd be like, hey, what are y'all doing? Or whatever. You'd see them up on the
Yeah.
deck. And I don't know, it's
Uh-huh.
just kind of funny. Where you're like, we don't really have
Our-
much privacy here.
Right. Well, and we in our yard we used to have how high was that one? 3 feet? Like
Yeah.
a 3 foot little fence. So we'd go in our backyard and everyone like people could see us eating dinner through our window as they drove by. And so it's like, okay, we need a 6 foot fence. But our neighbors it's the second home, they loved it because the kids would always run up to the little fence and talk to them. And
Aw.
so when we got a 6 foot fence, they would yell over it like, we don't like this. We cannot see you. And so the kids climb up the fence and poke over. And
That's funny.
yeah, it's pretty funny.
So I know like the idea of moving, is there a sense of hesitancy to like want to move from this beautiful community, even
yeah.
though you're like busting
Oh.
at the seams?
Totally. All of us families, we've all talked about it. We're like, gosh, if one of us moves, we all got to go because,
Yeah.
and like I said, this crew of families, some of them are tighter. Like there's a group of them that are actually like a lot tighter. And so, yeah, I think they might have a harder time. We're tight with them, but I think they really do a lot of life together, which is really cool to watch. They just click and it works out really well for them. But I do think it is hard to think about moving because it's like, well, we'd only be moving for a little bit bigger home and a little bit bigger yard. And so what's more beneficial? Being known and, knowing people around you or more space. So thankfully, we don't really have a decision to be made because everything's so crazy with buying a house right now. So,
Right.
But yeah, it is hard to think about moving.
Yeah. Or we just buy a big old plot of land and then
Yeah.
just move next door to each other. And then
Yeah.
I guarantee you're gonna have really great neighbors who can
Yes.
fix things, who can entertain you. all the things.
Babysit.
Yes, totally. See?
Yep.
So there's that. My challenge to you, listener, is I challenge you to like go outside your comfort zone, meet a neighbor today. Whether that's like actually have more than a conversation than just hello. We're looking at you, Molly. Bake something nice and put it on someone's doorstep, or have a lemonade stand, or I don't know, and then let us know how it goes, because I think you know, maybe you'll start a really cool trend and then you'll have really cool community that you didn't even know was near you. Thanks, Nina. And thanks, Robin.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for joining us for A Word with the Girls, a podcast where one word sparks conversation. And we really do believe in the power of stories and the power of connecting. And so thanks for joining us. Take our word neighbor and share it with your people. Go be a good neighbor today and let us know how it goes in the comments on Instagram and YouTube. And make sure to follow along for Molly's Matching Molly in May. Let's find Molly a match. All right. Good to connect with y'all. Love you.
Love you more. Bye.
Join us for A Word with the Girls. New episodes drop every week.